Jay Leno owns far more vehicles than the average person will ever dream of, somewhere around 181 cars, plus a huge stable of motorcycles on top of that. Most people love gushing about his flashiest machines, the polished icons that show up on magazine covers and late-night talk shows. But tucked in among all that glamour are some genuinely odd ducks that most visitors would walk right past without realizing what they're looking at. You might ask yourself why anyone would want these things in the first place, but when you're wealthy, mechanically curious, and have the storage space to match, the answer becomes pretty simple. Why not? Leno has always said he collects cars not for status, but because each one tells a story about where engineering was headed at a particular moment in time. So let's take a slow, deliberate tour through 13 of the weirdest, most unexpected cars sitting in Jay Leno's garage.
Number 13. 1929 Duesenberg chassis. Among Leno's collection is a strange piece of automotive history, a bare 1929 Duesenberg chassis sitting out in the open with no bodywork covering it at all. With no fenders, no doors, and no roof to speak of, this rolling skeleton highlights Leno's admiration for the mechanical artistry of the era rather than its outward polish. He picked up the chassis, stamped with engine J383 on frame 2430, and never bothered fitting it with a body. That particular engine had originally ridden in chassis 2402 underneath a formal Willoughby limousine body, the kind of coachwork wealthy buyers commissioned individually from custom builders in the 1920s. Rather than caring about outward appearance, Leno wanted to spotlight the engineering guts of the car, the part most owners never got to see once the coach builder finished dressing it up. Dating to the late 1920s, a period obsessed with luxury and craftsmanship, this chassis alone weighs roughly 4,400 pounds and contributes heavily to the car's overall mass. Powering it is a 420 cubic inch straight 8 introduced in 1928, good for about 265 horsepower, remarkably strong for its day. One highlight is the ornate grille, which alone cost $1,200 back in the 1930s, a sum that could have bought an entire modest car outright. The leather convertible top, meanwhile, was so delicate it needed replacing after nearly every rainstorm, which says a lot about how differently owners treated their cars back then, more like fine furniture than daily transportation. That big straight 8 delivered plenty of torque, showing off Duesenberg's engineering pedigree, and power reached the wheels through a manual gearbox that put the driver in direct control of every gear change.
Number 12. 1932 Morgan three-wheeler. The 1932 Morgan three-wheeler is a quirky, endearing piece of Leno's lineup, straddling the line between car and motorcycle in a way that still confuses people who see it for the first time. Morgan Motor Company, started by HFS Morgan back in 1909, set out to build something both cheap to run and quick. The result was this three-wheeled experiment, and against the odds, it worked. Built from 1932 all the way to 1952, its long production run says a lot about how well it was received. With one wheel up front and two in back, the layout breaks every normal automotive rule, and that odd stance is a big part of its appeal even today. A pressed steel chassis keeps things light while still sturdy enough for genuinely spirited handling on twisting roads. Motivation comes from a four-cylinder Ford side valve engine, nothing fancy, but plenty capable for a machine this small and light, since the whole car weighs a fraction of what a contemporary saloon did. The stripped-back design, with its open cockpit and exposed engines sitting right out in the wind, only adds to the sense of adventure. Piloting one means working a manual gearbox and feeling every bump of the road directly through the seat of your pants, an experience closer to riding a motorcycle than driving a conventional automobile. Number 11. 1935 Delahaye 135S. Leno's garage also holds a 1935 Delahaye 135S, one of the most elegant competition cars to come out of pre-war France. Émile Delahaye, a French engineering pioneer, began his career tinkering with internal combustion engines before eventually founding the marque that would carry his name into motorsport legend.
The 135S debuted in 1935 at the first ever Paris Motor Show and went on to leave a real mark on automotive history, both on the road and on the racetrack. Built between 1935 and 1954 with continual refinements along the way, it built a reputation as a genuine performance machine capable of humbling far more expensive rivals. Its styling was a major part of the appeal. Flowing, elegant lines that earned it the nickname Queen of the Road, a name that still gets used by collectors and historians describing the car today. But it wasn't just a pretty face. Over its 15-year competition career, the 135S ran at Le Mans 4 times and took the Monte Carlo Rally in 1936, 1937, and 1939, a remarkable run of consistency for any manufacturer of the period. In 1938, a privately entered 135S, driven by Eugene Chaboud and Jean Tremoulet, won the 24 Hours of Le Mans outright, beating factory-backed teams with far bigger budgets. Under the bonnet sat a 3.6-liter inline-six with triple carburetors putting out around 160 horsepower, paired with a manual gearbox for a hands-on driving feel that rewarded a skilled driver. Buyers could pick from short, medium, or long wheelbase chassis, each giving a different character behind the wheel. Between its striking looks, racing pedigree, and solid engineering, the 135S earned its place in automotive lore.
Number 10. 1962 Volga Gaz-21. The 1962 Volga Gaz-21 is a former Soviet-era staff car once used by the KGB, and it's often called one of the roughest-built cars ever produced, which only makes it more fascinating in Leno's eyes. Its draw for Leno comes down to sheer rarity and oddity. He's reportedly the only private collector anywhere with one. Mass-produced between 1956 and 1970, the Volga actually came loaded with surprising equipment for its time, including reclining front seats, a cigarette lighter, a heater, a windshield washer, and a 3-band radio, features that many Western economy cars of the same era didn't bother offering. It also had heavy rust-proofing, essential given the amount of road salt used in Moscow winters. Power came from a 4-cylinder engine that behaved more like something out of a tractor than a passenger car, built to keep running under conditions that would have stalled out a more delicate Western engine. The Volga's tall ground clearance and tough suspension gave it a very different silhouette from its sleeker Western contemporaries, more suited to rutted country roads than smooth city boulevards, yet it still carried a few comfort touches uncommon for the 1950s. Built to survive brutal Russian winters, it ran a 2.5-liter inline-4, making either 75 or 80 horsepower, depending on compression ratio, and buyers could choose either a 3-speed manual or an automatic, a rare option for a Soviet car of the period.
Number 9. 1937 Fiat Topolino. Leno's love of unconventional cars extends to the 1937 Fiat Topolino, a car so small it practically disappears next to most of his other vehicles. While plenty of people overlook this tiny machine, Leno spotted its charm right away, and it's easy to understand why once you see it up close. Nicknamed the Little Mouse, the Topolino was built from 1936 to 1955 and became a beloved fixture of Italian motoring history, putting an entire generation of Italians behind the wheel for the very first time. Its rounded, mouse-like shape made it instantly recognizable despite its diminutive footprint. Practical touches like reclining seats, a lighter, a heater, a 3-band radio, and even a windshield washer made it genuinely usable. Useful given Italy's climate, where rust-proofing against salty Mediterranean air was a real design concern for any car expected to last more than a few seasons. Power came from a modest 569 cubic centimeter inline-4, reliable if unspectacular, producing roughly 13 to 16 horsepower depending on the exact model year. It was never quick, but it was dependable, and its 4-speed manual let drivers navigate busy Italian streets with ease. For Leno, the Topolino represents a piece of automotive history and the pure joy of driving delightfully different.
Number 8. 1966 NSU Spider. Leno has a real soft spot for rotary engines, and one prize example is his 1966 NSU Spider, built by West German automaker NSU between 1964 and 1967 in relatively small numbers. It holds a genuine place in history as the first production car ever fitted with a Wankel rotary engine, offering a smooth and unusual driving feel that set it apart from every conventional piston engine rival on the market at the time. Despite its groundbreaking tech, the Spider remains a rare and unusual find for collectors like Leno, since so few were built and even fewer survive today. Its design mixes whimsy with sophistication, a combination Leno clearly appreciates, even if the tiny cabin looks almost comically small for a man of his height. He's described the styling as silly yet sophisticated, and plenty of onlookers would agree. Being a convertible only adds to the charm, making it perfect for sunny top-down drives. Under the hood sits a single-rotor Wankel engine, displacing just 0.5 liters, small by any standard, but impressive for its era, producing around 50 horsepower, solid output for a lightweight sports car of the 1960s. Despite the clever engineering and eye-catching looks, the Spider was pricey in its day, going up against rivals like the Porsche 356.
Number 7. 1928 Bugatti Type 37A. Leno's Bugatti collection is extensive, including what's believed to be the oldest running example of the Marquis, a 1913 Type 22. But our focus here is the 1928 Type 37A, built less than 2 decades later and representing a real leap forward in Bugatti craftsmanship during one of the company's most creative periods. Produced between 1927 and 1930, the 37A carries a 1.5-liter inline-4, making between 79 and 84 horsepower, genuinely impressive output for its time. This sports car built its reputation racing in Grand Prix events, becoming one of the defining pre-war classics thanks to its blend of power, finesse, and lightweight. Unlike the standard Type 37, aimed at amateur racers, the 37A came supercharged, boosting output from 59 to 79 horsepower. Some sources put the increase even higher. It could spin to a 5,000 RPM redline and reach roughly 122 miles per hour, a remarkable figure for the era, when most road cars struggle to reach half that speed. Leno bought his Type 37A from Robert Dunlop, former president of the American Bugatti Club. This car stands out not only for its historical significance, but also for its engineering excellence.
Number 6. 1931 Shotwell. Back in 1931, a 17-year-old named Bob Shotwell wanted nothing more than a car as a high school graduation present. His father, however, told him that if he wanted one, he'd have to build it himself. So Bob did exactly that, crafting a one-of-a-kind 3-wheeled coupe entirely by hand, using whatever parts and skills he could scrape together. That homemade creation would eventually land in Jay Leno's collection decades later. Shotwell personally reached out to Leno, hoping his creation would be preserved by someone who'd truly appreciate it, and Leno gladly agreed to look after it, on the condition that it stay intact. Power came from a 1931 Indian motorcycle engine, a 4-cylinder unit displacing 1.3 liters and producing around 30 horsepower, enough to push the little car to roughly 65 miles per hour. Remarkably, Bob's homemade creation racked up an estimated 150,000 miles over its lifetime, a testament to both its durability and its young builder's skill. Bob was especially protective of the vehicle's precious original engine, worried it might one day be stripped out, a concern that Leno's careful stewardship has thoroughly put to rest. Number 5. 1991 LCC Rocket. The LCC Rocket is anything but ordinary. Designed by Gordon Murray, the mind behind the legendary McLaren F1, it's essentially his dream car brought to life outside the constraints of a big manufacturer's budget or committee. Astonishingly light at under 800 pounds, it's a rear-engine 2-seater built on an all-steel chassis using the best motorsport technology available at the time. Visually, the Rocket, which arrived in the early 1990s, looks like it stepped out of the 1960s, with fender lines that hug the tires tightly,
and a glossy paint finish that adds to its offbeat appeal. Built by the Light Car Company between 1991 and 1998, it packs a 1.0-liter inline-4, making 143 horsepower and 77 pound-feet of torque, running purely on gasoline. Only 55 were ever made. Despite its tiny footprint, Leno has jokingly compared it to being no bigger than a coffin. It delivers a genuinely thrilling drive. Power comes from a Yamaha motorcycle engine capable of revving to an astonishing 12,500 RPM, paired with a 6-speed sequential gearbox for a truly exhilarating driving experience.
Number 4. 2001 Blastoline Special. The Blastoline Special is less a car than a rolling piece of art, hand-built by Randy Grubb, a master of aluminum bodywork whose creations blur the line between automobile and sculpture. To Grubb, this isn't merely transportation, it's a functional sculpture you can actually drive, blending form and function in equal measure. Completed by Blastoline in 2001, the car packs a monstrous V12, displacing 30 liters and cranking out an eye-watering 1,600 horsepower alongside 3,000 pound-feet of torque, all running on gasoline and capable of pushing the massive roadster to 140 miles per hour. Grubb had a hunch that Leno would want it, and he was right. Leno bought the Blastoline Special for around $125,000 back in 2003. Since then, it's been significantly reworked, gaining stabilizing struts, a GMC truck front axle to better handle the torque, and a 6-speed automatic transmission to make it more usable on public roads. The original V12, sourced from an M47 patent military tank, has since been upgraded with fuel injection and twin turbochargers, pushing its output and efficiency even further. That level of ongoing refinement says a lot about the craftsmanship that defines the build.
Number 3. 1906 Stanley Steamer. Did steam power vanish along with the old locomotives? Not quite. One vehicle in Leno's collection looks more like a shrunken train than a typical antique automobile, his 1906 Stanley Steamer, a longtime favorite, likely in part because of its considerable rarity and value in today's collector market. Leno isn't a garage queen collector. He actually drives these things regularly, and the steamer needed real work before it was road-ready. His mechanics swapped the original, unreliable drum brakes for hydraulic units borrowed from a Jaguar XK120 and replaced the old acetylene headlamps and oil-fed taillights with modern electric ones. They also fitted a larger boiler, effectively turning the old steamer into a modernized hot rod version of itself. What makes it special is the steam power itself, a world away from ordinary gasoline engines and giving it a distinctly locomotive-like character, further emphasized by its antique lamps and vintage detailing. The engine runs on a mix of kerosene and water for fuel, and while it was never fast, the recent upgrades have given it noticeably more punch, better suited to Leno's spirited driving style. Power reaches the wheels through steam pressure alone, sending the car down the road with a quiet hiss rather than a roar.
Number 2. 1913 Mercer Raceabout. A genuine relic of the brass era, the 1913 Mercer Raceabout holds a special spot in Leno's collection, representing the raw, stripped-down spirit of America's earliest sports cars. Built by the Mercer Automobile Company out of Trenton, New Jersey, it typifies the lightweight, purpose-built roadsters of its time. Leno picked it up, recognizing both its historical weight and its distinctive design, and the story behind the car, including the fate of its designer and the short life of the Mercer Company itself, only adds to its mystique. Produced from 1910 to 1914, the Raceabout represents the earliest days of the auto industry. Unlike the sleek British Morgan era of the same period, the Mercer has a chunkier, more muscular stance, built around a stripped-down chassis and a relatively modest 4.9-liter inline-4, sizable for the era. That bare-bones philosophy let owners shed anything unnecessary and head straight to the racetrack.
The open cockpit invites spirited top-down driving, true to the wind-in-your-hair spirit of early roadsters, with a minimalistic interior stripped down to just what's needed to drive. Its 58-horsepower engine, mated to a 3-speed manual, delivered strong performance for the day, underscoring its racing roots and lively character.
Number 1. 1966 Oldsmobile Toronado. Topping the list is the 1966 Oldsmobile Toronado, a groundbreaking American car that holds real significance in LENO'S collection. This luxury coupe marked a turning point in automotive history, bringing front-wheel drive back to American cars for the first time since the Accord in the 1930s. Leno, always drawn to genuine automotive innovation, picked up the Toronado for its historical weight and clever engineering, reflecting his broader passion for preserving automotive heritage. Built from 1966 through 1992 across several generations, the Toronado made its debut in a year still remembered as a milestone for automotive design and technology. Its front-wheel drive layout, unusual for the time, delivered better traction, sharper handling, and more interior room than the rear-drive cars it competed against. With its long hood, hidden headlights, and elegant contours, the Toronado's styling captured a real sense of understated luxury.
And that wraps up our countdown of the 13 weirdest cars hiding in Jay Leno's garage. From a bare Duesenberg chassis to a tank-engined roadster and a homemade three-wheeler built by a teenager, this collection proves that being a true car enthusiast isn't just about chasing the fastest or the flashiest machine. It's about appreciating the story behind every single one. If you enjoyed this trip through Leno's garage, let us know which of these 13 cars surprised you the most down in the comments below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another deep dive like this one. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.